Welcome back to the channel, everybody. If you're new here, I cover topics that might have slipped through the cracks in the school system that can help you in your everyday adult life. Now, I grew up in the States, so this does pertain to our school system. Now, here in the States, we do live by the Imperial system. But if you've ever tried to follow a recipe that originated outside of the US, then there might be some confusion here. I was going to make this all into one video, but I soon realized that it's a lot of information. So I'm actually going to split this up into 3 different videos covering volume, length, and weight for both the imperial and the metric system. I'm going to cover what they are and how to convert them from one to another on the spot. And just a little advice, try not to let your pride get in your way from learning different ways of doing things. The metric system isn't foreign, it's just a different way to do math. So don't limit yourselves into learning something only one way. But with that being said, let's get into volume first. The most used form of volume are gallons, quarts, cups, and ounces for the imperial system, liters and milliliters for the metric system. 1 gallon is equal to 4 quarts, 1 quart is equal to 4 cups, and 1 cup is equal to 8 ounces. So you have 16 cups to a gallon and 128 ounces to a gallon. Now, this is all confusing because there's so many numbers, but to break it down in more simple terms, these numbers start making sense when you realize they are all powers of 2. 4 quarts, 8 ounces, 16 cups, 32 ounces, 128 ounces, everything just doubles. Now, the metric system applies the same principles, but the difference is that it applies it in powers of 10 rather than powers of 2. Tens, hundreds, and thousands. For example, 1 liter is equal to 1,000 milliliters. Now, why 1,000? Well, in Latin-based terminology, mil, M-I-L, means 1,000, or millimeter, milliliter means 1 of 1,000. So naturally, 1,000 milliliters is equal to 1 liter. But how do the two compare? Well, 1 liter is sitting at around 33 ounces, a little bit more than that. So you've seen those Pepsi bottles, Coke bottles in the supermarket, the 2-liter bottles? Yeah, that's 2 liters. That's the metric system. Our smaller bottles here in the US are measured by ounces. The larger bottles are measured by liters, which is very strange. But just remember that there are 4 quarts to a gallon. 1 quart is equal to 32 ounces. So 1 quart is a little bit less than 1 liter, about an ounce or so. So whenever you see a liter, if it's easier for you to remember, that's about a quart, give or take. Now, think of the metric system as having a lot more detail to measuring these kind of things. The measuring units are a lot smaller, which can lead to be more accurate. And this is important with things like feeding babies, for example. We had our baby last year, and if you're unfamiliar with feeding babies when they're newborns, they don't eat very much at all. So when we were feeding our baby, he wasn't even eating an ounce, and most bottles have ounces, and on the other side they have milliliters. And for people living in the US, the smallest form of measurement we have really are ounces. So there was no way for us to really measure what we were feeding him unless we were using the metric system. Now, 1 ounce is roughly around 30 milliliters. He was eating like 5 to 10 milliliters when we were feeding him. Now, there is no super accurate way to measure that small amount in ounces. So thank goodness we have the metric system. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this video on converting volume from the metric system to the imperial system and vice versa. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for the next video on how to convert length from the metric system and the imperial system.